Hey, everybody, it's Matt Michaels here on the DeFalco Files with the owner and creator of FSW Future Stars of Wrestling here in Las Vegas, Mr. Joe DeFalco. Joe, how are you doing this day?
Doing all right. Finalizing some SummerSlam weekend business. The major cog we've finalized. So now it's just where we're going to fill in the blanks for the rest of the weekend.
Nice. Is it so tactically? I can't even say it. With the looking forward at trying to figure out where you're going to put things, how you're going to get things in, is it easy for you to figure out what would be beneficial for you guys without knowing necessarily all of what is going to be going on from different companies running different places? A lot of out of town talent coming on. You got the tryouts going on with WWE. How do you balance that activity with putting together stuff that will not only be, shows that will attract people, but in the end will also be, besides exposure, be profitable for you guys?
Well, first off, our only concern is what WWE is doing that weekend. I'm not really concerned if we want to do a show. Like, obviously, we're working with GCW, and they're
Right.
going to be doing a Friday night show. So for us to do a show the same time at them is just dumb. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Will we get our fans? Sure. Will they get their fans? Sure. But they're going to be doing a Friday evening show, say 7 o'clock. Well, that gives us some freedom on Friday night to maybe do a 10 or 11 p.m. thing, whether it's my thinking is we do a Natural Born Killer show that Friday night. That way it's a totally different show than
Yeah.
GW's presenting. Okay, this one's more their blood sport type of, MMA style matches. And, we already got Tom Lawler and Graves and Simon Gotch and, some of the other guys that happen to live in town, the Cal Jacks and Tito Escondidos, and just that normal crew that has continually worked our events, Dave Mazzani, Ryan Walker from Bellator, things like that. So I think a late night Friday night thing would be beneficial. So yesterday I was talking with Brett from GCW, trying to get this thing in check because they got a lot of shows going on for the next 2 months, like I said, but we have to get our stuff done here because then it opens up what we're going to do during the rest of the weekend. So we both agreed that doing the joint GCW versus FSW show is going to happen before SummerSlam. We're going to do it at 12 noon on that Saturday. That way people are waking up instead of, when you go to a football game and you go early. I forgot what it's called. I was thinking about it the other day.
The tailgating, your basic
tailgate party, right? Yeah. So instead, we're the tailgate party at 12 noon. We run till about 2:30. It gives everybody plenty of time since we're 10 minutes away from Allegiant. You want to use our parking lot? Sure, who cares? And get the Uber over. But it's a 10 to 12 minute drive, maybe a little more, but still, people will be there by 3:30 the latest. So even if you don't want to, even if you want to sit in the stands at the pre-show at 4:45 or 4:30, depending on, I'm assuming it starts at 5 from what everything I've seen.
Yeah.
So it gives them plenty of time. So then we have the option of, hey, buy a ticket, stick around and watch SummerSlam on the big screens at the FSW arena. And we can have some, sodas and food and candy or whatever. And, we can do that. Then there's also the possibility of doing a late night Saturday night show at say 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
And we've been in talks with some other companies that it looks like Sunday, we're definitely going to do, instead of a FSW versus show, more of a collective, a collaboration between some companies from throughout the U.S., East Coast, West Coast, South, East, things like that. No Peace Underground. They want to come out here and do something together. And it seems like, they're starting to utilize a lot of our talent. I know Jay Vidal won his match debuting over there, and as well as using, numerous talents from FSW on there. So, there's a possibility that Sunday we also do the FSW Women's Show. We're debating on whether we do it July 31st, standalone show, or we do it the Sunday, August 22nd of SummerSlam weekend, being that there's probably a good amount of talent that's going to be available.
Right.
Without having the fly-ins and doing all the other stuff, to where now the show, when you talk about profit margins, it's kind of hard to get a profit margin on a show when you flew 5 people in. So,
right.
If they're going to be there, there's another show in town that I saw, that Carlito is going to be a part of. And, I just got some contact from my guy, and we got some info on him, and then we're going to try to see about maybe utilizing him on a show, as well as getting him a card signing at the mall through Scott. So try to package some things together and hopefully offset some costs, and then find out who else is going to be here. Maybe we have a Natural Born Killers main event, and Brock Lesnar wants to wrestle Kurt Angle at our show. So, I got 500 with their name on
it. Oh my God. So, if anyone is listening and you have direct contact with Kurt Angle or Brock Lesnar, let's get this going. And you listeners right now, you're on social media, start hashtagging the hell out of that, and let's make this into existence.
That's right. One last time.
When you look at the benefits, like you said, of not having to fly extra talent in, that they'll be here in general. And a lot of people that I tend to talk to want to work in some capacity, FSW. Does that make it worthwhile for you in terms of knowing that the foundation of FSW and people wanting to work for FSW, if they are in town, it just makes that so much easier for you to take apart and plug it in to make to enhance a card that would already be great with just the talent that you have here locally, and then getting that extra bump from guys who are coming in from the East Coast, or maybe the Northwest or Southwest, or Southeast, I'm sorry, that maybe some of the fans have never seen live before. Is that one of the attractions to kind of give the local fans a taste of some of these independent guys? I know you started the initiative, the talent initiative earlier, I guess at this point last year. Is that a draw for you to be able to plug those guys in and give the fans something maybe that they haven't seen yet, new people to kind of look at, and also maybe cheer on their hometown favorites versus some of the guys that are from out of state?
Well, you got to understand, a lot of our local talent, they have been on FSW shows for years, unless you're a new talent. So it becomes a really difficult process of, okay, who's Hammerstone going to work? Who's Graves going to work that he hasn't worked before? even the younger guys as they're moving up the ladder. When a guy like Hero Lou's moving up the ladder, guess who he's wrestling? He's wrestling Graves and Hammerstone to get experience. Now, as he climbs toward the top, who's he going to wrestle? Well, he's going to probably wrestle Hammerstone and Graves. So when we can bring in EC3, when we can start utilizing Toa and him and Graves have a beefy big boy bruiserweight match, it's something that despite Graves being there for so long, you're trying to incorporate the younger talent. I always remember, with opportunities and things like that. And my first start at really doing that was at, as I call the precursor to the Mecca When Stars Collide, was my IWF shows that we had Johnny the Bull and Shelton Benjamin as part of the creative team on those shows. And while they were very mindset on bringing in, like the very first show, the Carlitos and the Chris Masters and talented guys, I was the one who brought Ricochet and Rich Swann and Shane Strickland and Tony Nese and basically everybody you watch in NXT throughout the tenure of the IWF, as witnessed by the last show that we ever did that had Trevor Lee, Shane Strickland, Chris Hero, Apollo Crews, the Young Bucks, Brian Cage, Drew Galloway, Drew McIntyre, whatever we call him now these days. And all those guys were on the show. And I remember doing the first Meccas, and guys that I really liked seeing, the AR Foxes and the Shane Stricklands, we brought them in. And one of the nicest things I remember was, before Shane was basically done, he did another Mecca event where he wrestled John Morrison. And as he was getting a sign, I'm like, hit him up, hey, congrats. And, he put me over strong. He was like, hey, I just want to let you know I really appreciate you being one of the first guys that kind of got him out of his norm,
Right.
coming to the West Coast. And other than PWG, nobody really on the West Coast was using Shane Strickland at the time when we first were. And it's trying to get that lightning in a bottle. We got a couple of new guys debuting at the show this weekend, Percy Drews and a guy named, what's his name? Seth Rollins trained him, Travis Titan, that going to be in what I think should be an incredible four-way between Adrian Quest, Matt Vandergriff, and Jay Vidal. So, sometimes people aren't that excited when they hear about the Joe DeFalco four-ways, but I'll tell you what, in most cases, those are some of the best matches you're going to see on the card, and getting all those guys and getting the new talent. So yeah, absolutely 1,000%. Like, we're going to scour who's in town SummerSlam weekend. I saw the one card. It's mainly a lucha show, supposedly produced by Del Rio. That's got Drago on it. And I saw Funny Bone was going to wrestle him there. And, there was definitely a lot of talent there. So why wouldn't we want to utilize that talent when they're there? As well as, with the GCW show, I have in my mind who I want to see wrestle, and as busy as Brett is, there are certain guys he uses. So he knows Juicy and Vandergriff and Eli Everfly and Cartwheel, because he does shows in LA and he's used some of those guys. But, I already pitched for Matt Vandergriff versus Jack Cartwheel, which I think would be phenomenal, And then we're talking, I had mentioned Effie versus Jay Vidal, and, Sandra Moon versus Alley Cat, and Nick Gage versus Cutthroat Cody,
Do you really? you're trying to kill Cody, aren't you?
That was a personal request from Cody. So.
Oh, Jesus.
because we knew, as much as we love Jacob Austin Young, he's not really looking to get hit with any light tubes, if you know. So, that might be a show that he may have to, sit and watch from the bleachers. Watch Cody go, toe to toe. There's Remy Marcel. Hey, does he work, say, a Chris Dickinson? There's a lot of talent that, if we're going to have the, Hammerstone won't be there that weekend. So the one major title will be the GCW Heavyweight Championship. I assume that's going to be the main event, but I'm sure we're going to have the Nevada State title defended on that show. And then, they got their mixtures. I know Chris Bay, he's talked about wanting to work a guy, Starboy Charlie, Now, whether that's going to happen, we're going to see. I've also pitched a kind of a precursor to our survival of the fittest in September. We have a little FSW versus GCW, 4-on-4 Survivor Series style elimination match, And I know guys like Manders and Matthew Justice are more than happy to put people through doors. So, it's definitely not for the faint. Pretty sure I'm not going to put Bodie in with Matt Justice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. When you just said door, which brought up Big Valley Wrestling did their Loud and Proud event this past Saturday, and Effie, who we sponsored, was wrestling Ricky Tenacious, and Ricky took a spear right through a door. When you look at
a door, it's only a door.
I thought you were.
How many times did Ice Williams go through a door? Ice Williams' brother went through a door.
That's true. But the main point that I'm thinking of is when you have guys that you do use that are your local guys, and they are wrestling a talent that's coming from out of town, and it is something a little more to an extreme of having to go through something or having a ladder match or a strap match or something like that. How does it affect you in terms of hopefully not being a guy who you're in the middle of pushing pretty hard, and B, that person not getting injured in some kind of fashion doing a match like that? Do you ever get concerned about the welfare of these guys working the hardcore style matches?
Yes and no, because no matter what you tell Eli Everfly, he's gonna do something fucking crazy. Matt Vandergriff, these guys, they're young, man. Maybe Eli not so young compared to Vandergriff, but Jay Vidal, they're risk takers. They feel the best way for them to get to the next level is maybe do some things that other people are a little gun shy to do, and I'm not a fan of the death matches, but there's a large group of people who likes them. And, there's gimmicks and characters that I wasn't a big fan of that I still book because I don't let my personal thought of, hey, I was never the biggest Joey Ryan, Dick Flip fan ever. I'm like, I don't get it. Like WrestleMania weekend when he's wrestling on 25 shows, how can that be over? But it continually was. And we brought him in at a Beers and Body Slams, and he outdrew as the name more than most of the really big names that we had, because at that time he was a hot commodity because of that gimmick. And same situation. When an RVD and a Sabu and ECW came along, until ECW, that was kind of a fad, that hardcore style,
Right.
And then it became popular. There's so many things. It's like, you watch who in their right mind watching wrestling 10 years ago would watch Orange Cassidy and be like, oh, this is great. This is going to be amazing. And, you know, the guy worked in Chikara, I believe, for many years and wrestled regularly. And then he came up with a gimmick that made him do far less and probably make far more than he ever did. Now he's in AEW getting far more than he ever got because he's doing this to a 56, almost 56-year-old man, kind of like, man, I don't really know if I get this. And I'm pretty liberal when it comes to gimmicks and ideas and all the other stuff. But everybody has their personal tastes. You know, what I like, you know, there's always that big misconception, especially with the wrestlers. Oh, Joe just likes that flippy shit, you know, and it's like, well, that's totally untrue. But I like an extremely fast-paced match that these guys are going balls to the wall to win a match, you know.
Right.
But I just as well will enjoy watching Hammerstone and Graves beat the shit out of each other for 20 minutes. You know, it's like, regardless of the style of match, a shitty match is a shitty match. You know, I've seen some of those 4-ways that were the fucking shits. And some of my favorite matches that I've had along the years putting together have been those 3 and 4 ways. Because I have a mindset. My mindset was always, I wasn't a big fan of that PWG Ring of Honor. Not saying I didn't like their wrestling and their high spots and all the other stuff, but these guys would go 25 minutes with 50 near falls from every big move, and people would just kick out of it. At least when I'm watching my 3-way or a 4-way, Matt Vandergriff hits a Spanish fly, goes for the cover. The guy doesn't kick out at 1. He has the match won, but the other guy makes the save.
Right.
And how the match continues. And that's what I enjoy about it. 1 pin wins. You know, elimination matches are different, obviously. And nothing worse than an elimination match. I'm watching a 4-way elimination match and somebody's breaking up a fall. Are you a fucking idiot? Like,
right.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand what the rules of everything are. And I'm more of a stickler of that. Like, I see basic stuff that I don't enjoy that takes me out of a match. You know, I want the believability. You know, a lot of people didn't like Disco's commentary sometimes because he would make these off-color sarcastic remarks that the wrestlers understood he was kind of trashing when, you know, a guy's hitting, you know, the DDT after Jake Roberts shows up on a show, and that's not even a 1 count because it's a transition move. And basically Disco will make a comment to being, you know, referencing, you know, the man's superpowers and, you know, all this stuff to make him seem like a superhuman being that now that wrestler takes personally. And it's like, all he's asking is to sell a little bit, make it seem like it matters. There's nothing worse than the dueling super kicks. Like, oh, boom, 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 boom. I remember we did a show in Benson, Arizona, with Tyson Tyler. He had a deal with the high school there. And we had, you know, Kenny King and Tyshawn against Brian Cage, and Lance Hoyt was the main event. And TJP, I think, was wrestling as Manic or Suicide. And he wrestled Chris Sabin. And the opening match was like this throwaway 6-man tag just to get things kind of rolling. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the thing, there's a spot. Super kick, bounce off, super kick, bounce off, super kick. I swear to God, I thought Kenny was going to run down the entranceway and lay both of those guys out. But Kenny didn't even wait till they got to the locker room to go off on them. Like, they were still where the guardrails were. Like, what the fuck are you guys doing? You know, even remember the very first show we did, and that was at the Rancho Swap Meet, even warmer than night one of our anniversary show. Okay. And Legacy had his wrestling school and his little company. He had the UWF. So he had a lot of the younger kids. And on the show, the deal was I needed a ring. We didn't have one. So Phil said, hey, instead of renting you the ring, I'm going to let you use the ring. In exchange, let my young kids be in the pre-show match.
Sure.
So Mike Delight was actually the referee of the show match. Okay. So I guess they did that electric chair spot, 3 minutes in, a bunch of kids. They go back to the locker room and they're ecstatic. Like, oh my God, how great. And Kenny fucking Lamb basted him, and it was most of these guys' first match ever,
Sure.
in reality. And Kenny was just going nuts, like, dude, this is the fucking pre-show. Basics. Get in there, do your thing, get the fuck out. The idea is now everybody else has to try to overcome what you did to start the show.
Yeah.
From a bunch of kids who could barely lock up. Sure, they hit one big spot, but what about the rest of the match that bored everybody to tears? And that's what having veterans around is good for. They see certain things. A lot of times you see a lot of the same stuff over and over during the show. Like I remember when we first started at the Silver Nugget, it was like, snapmare kick to the back. Like you would see it 8 times in 9 matches. Nowadays it's we got to do that suicide dive.
Yeah.
We got to make sure there's 7 guys standing outside the ring waiting for you to do a crossbody that everybody knows you're going to do. Literally at the anniversary show, I had to watch somebody basically be in the ring on their feet, turned down, waiting to get hit with a double stomp for like 40 seconds. And I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible. It's like everybody wants to suspend belief. Everybody wants it to believe it's real. Everybody wants to believe, oh, I think he pissed him off. I think he really fucking laid it in. Everybody's looking for that shot. Oh man, he's not selling well. I really think he got hurt. Right. And when you can fool people like that, that's what makes people on the edge of their seat. That's what makes people, enthralled by the match. No matter how good the matches are, a lot of the moves are similar. Why are people caring? Why did all of a sudden people care about Gregory Sharp and Jay Vidal? Because they didn't see Sharp for a long time after the Remy thing. Jay Vidal loved hottest thing going in FSW. And when he hit him with that kendo stick, I swear to God, it seemed to me like it was 11 years of frustration that Gregory Sharp laid the fuck into Jay Vidal. Because he did. Yeah. He smashed him. And then the promo and then the video package. And now all of a sudden, a match that had not very long of a build, it was a couple of shows and it became a heated feud.
Yeah.
And then there's sometimes you see matches that technically they're sound, they're fine, but there's no investment in it from the crowd. And, that was good. Okay, next match. And 10 minutes later, they couldn't even tell you who won that match.
Right.
And again, that's no fault of anyone because sometimes, as I try to explain to everybody, sometimes the match is just a match. Sometimes every match can't be a storyline,
Right.
Like we're trying to build things to the big shows. So to give away Sandra Moon and Maserati 7 times before a big show match makes no sense. So, you know, we set up, hey, we got Strella and Sandra Moon in a #1 contenders feud. And we did the one match that came across kind of flat to me. Like Sandra won, the chair got moved. It was more Strella lost and Sandra won the match. And I was like, you know what? We need to do one more match. And we did the no DQ match. And it ended up being a brilliant decision by doing the extra match. That match might have been the best match of the night. It really solidified Sandra Moon. Strella lost nothing in defeat, has bounced back, as you saw in the Rumble match where, you know, she beat the shit out of the Shade, you know, and it is what it is. It's trying to create, it's trying to build. It's also trying to get young guys on the show. And then you get the frustration of the young guys crying because they're not on the show. And it's like, well, you know, no, sorry, you're only on the Rumble match in the anniversary. We got 6 matches. Where do you think you're going to go when 3 of them are title matches? You know, Suavecitos, they didn't get to be on till night 2, and they got to be in a 6-man tag. You know, some guys were able to make night 1 and not night 2. Some guys made night 2, but not night 1. You know, and it was all that scrambling around and trying to make things fit and trying to make things different. You know, we got a show coming up this Saturday at the FSW Arena, Scars and Stripes. You know, we're debating if we're going to get the barbecue out and make some burgers and dogs for the fans, kind of combine it with our fan appreciation day that we usually do in the summer, you know, and matches that I'm pretty certain we have never seen before, you know. We got Graves wrestling Wise Guy, which I think should be an excellent match. Hero Lou's going to wrestle Lazarus, which is interesting enough right there because Adriel's wrestling one of the Initiative guys, Percy Drews. I told you about the 4-way a little earlier. Brett the Thread, he's going to be on the card, and he has a very, very large task in front of him. We'll announce that later tonight. You know, be careful what you wish for. Brett the Thread, oh, I got a contract. Anybody wants to sign it. Well, I'm not sure if he wanted this guy that signed it to sign it. So, you know, Class is going to be there. Nick Xander, you know, Chase Bell, Nino Black, you know. But as great as the card is, Death Proof won't be there. Ice Williams won't be there. Remy Marcel won't be there. But we're still not missing a beat, you know, on the talent we have. You know, we almost have like a Raw and SmackDown roster that we have so many guys. But I hate to put one on one and one on the other.
Right.
You know.
Right. And that makes a lot of sense. And in a sense too, you'll also kind of have NXT with the Future Shock. You know,
right.
It's all encompassing. When you look at a show like this weekend's show, and it's basically, I would assume, the start of kind of that run towards what's going to be going down SummerSlam weekend.
Well, really, it's more of like we're now in the process of setting up for Survival of the Fittest in September. Because it's going to be where all of the main roster guys are going to mix and match to where we're doing. You know, I always remember I enjoyed back in the Survivor Series day, you know, they'd have the 8-on-8. So it would be 4 tag teams and 4 tag teams against each other. You eliminate one, the team's out, you know. SummerSlam's going to be more of a, you know, mixture of companies and talent, and whether, like I said, Natural Born Killers, Women's Show, FSW versus GCW, the collaboration, you know, everything that we're going to do. you know, as much as some people, including my son, want to do 35 shows on SummerSlam weekend, you know, it's just not feasible. You know, it's like, so here's the deal. So Friday at 7 o'clock, GCW is going to do a show. They're not doing it at the FSW arena. Okay. So they're going to need to use the ring, but they can't use our regular ring because we're going to need it Friday night after their show because we never have the time. So we got a 16-foot ring. We're going to let them use that for Friday night. Okay. Then we'll keep our ring in there for Friday. Odds are FSW GCW is going to happen at the arena at 12 noon. Then that's done. Now it's a possibility if we did an after SummerSlam show, we might do that at Diversion Amusements, which now means before SummerSlam, since most people are going to leave and watch it, we're going to have a skeleton crew that may have to go set up at Diversion Amusements.
Right.
Now, if we did the show there Saturday night, hopefully we're going to be able to do the show there Sunday day. But cost-wise, you know, they may not give us the deal of Saturday night into Sunday's another day, blah, 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 hitting numbers, you know, so maybe the ring stays at FSW Arena Saturday night. And then after the show Saturday night, which is after SummerSlam, which is like 11 o'clock at night, we then get the ring ready to go for Sunday morning for a 2 o'clock show or something like that. So it's like, people are like, hey, well, what are you doing now? Well, when's the tickets go on sale? It's like, we can't even figure out the schedule yet. And yesterday we finally, you know, got as much as confirmation as we could because everything is based around the FSW, GCW thing, or everything's based on GCW, you know, because in all honesty, the perfect show to run is when they're running. And we just can't run against them. Like I said, it makes no sense. So we need to find the second best option for us and make sure the second and third best options FSW's got, since we don't have the first best option.
Right.
You know? And again, we've heard of another show on that late Friday night. So that Lucha show is going to run head to head with GCW. Will it affect GCW? Absolutely not, because GCW has fans from Arizona, Utah, and Cali that are going to come anyway. You know, my son put out basically a reserve of a reserve ticket. So you have a waiting list, and that waiting list already is filled up with 2/3 of the capacity of the arena already.
Sure.
So now, will some people drop off because it's a noon show? Yeah, I guess so. But I haven't even like really hit up our main regulars and all the other people. And that's not even including the GCW people who are going to be in town Friday and, you know, stick around kind of like they did last time when, you know, Hammerstone and Jordan Oliver wrestled and Leo Rush was on the show. So, you know, there was GCW fans there because cross promotion helped us. You know, they do a lot of buy rates. You know, they do tremendous pay-per-view numbers. You know, we have ideas. You know, Joey Janela is interested in wrestling somebody who lives in Vegas. That may not be a main part of our regular roster. We've used a few times, but you know, I've heard Too Cold Scorpio and Ricky Morton are going to be in Vegas that weekend.
Oh, wow.
You know, not sure if Robert Gibson will be there, but, you know, who wouldn't want to see Rock and Roll Express versus Lights Camera Faction? Like, who wouldn't want to see that? You know, that's a main event anywhere in the U.S.
Oh, man. Well, you know who wouldn't want it? The Suavecitos, because the Suavecitos would obviously say
because they know they would have the banger of the weekend against Rock and Roll Express.
Does it excite you that you have limitless possibilities going into, you know, solidifying plans is that something that you look forward to when you get a chance to, do something essentially that, is not in the canon of what you're currently doing storyline wise, and you get a chance to, give guys an opportunity to wrestle guys that maybe they haven't had a chance or would like to have wrestled? Is that part of what makes this just exciting to you as not only an owner but as a fan?
Well, speaking of Limitless, we're also working on the Limitless tournament. That's going to
Right.
feature probably at least 12 of the best, high flyers, risk takers. And that was also another option for that weekend. But I think we need to stand alone on that. And that's possible that it might be July 31st. But what you need to understand is guys like, and again, obviously he's not around now, but guys like Sefa and Remy and Cody and Chris Bay. Well, when you're talking about Chris Bay, he's already on that national scene.
Right.
But before Sefa's really gone on to other things, and Cody and Remy, they've grinded it out for 10, 12 years doing tremendous things, but they feel, they got a chip on their shoulder that they haven't gotten the notoriety. That's why a Cody wants to wrestle a Nick Gage. He wants to show the world, because as many fans as we have, hey, we got over 9,000 followers. Well, GCW's got 30,000 followers. And they have an internet fan base that is through the roof. So if Cody can go out and give Nick Gage a hell of a match, well, that's going to help get bookings. And, these guys want to go to New York, and they want to go to Florida, and they want to go to Chicago. And little by little, these guys have gotten out and done other things, but they want to be able to do these things on a bigger level. When WrestleMania comes out next year, they don't want to buy a ticket, go there, hang out in a locker room, and hope that somebody has an opening. They want to go there knowing that they have 3 or 4 bookings. It's like, the Unguided, a couple of years ago, they may have went and were trying to get on stuff. Even the Bad Bitches, they knew they were going to be on Effie's show. They at least had a couple of things, because what they've done in the wrestling business is getting noticed. And what makes me proud is that it's my company that they work for that helped them get noticed. And in most cases, because of the opportunities they got, whether inadvertently through FSW or directly because of FSW, a lot of these guys like Vandegrift and Lacey Ryan and Cross and Bay and Sefa, they're always thanking me because of the opportunities they got. Hammerstone, these guys will work for me and understand that I know what they're worth. And you always hear in wrestling, never work for free. Always know your worth. Well, in some cases, these guys got their worth because everything they did with us, and now it's their turn to pay back. And, it makes no sense. It's kind of like I saw, people have been going back and forth, and I seen the Bob Evanses of the world and other guys that are like big time trainers and stuff that are basically telling Taz, no, there's a difference between knowing your value and what you work for, and it's like some of our younger guys feel slighted. Hey, this guy got an envelope. Hey, I'm as good as him. He got $20, he got $40, whatever. How come I don't get anything? And it's like, well, or I go wrestle over there 3 miles away and they pay me $20 and $40. Why don't you pay me?
Right.
Like, well, it's simple. See, when you started training, you paid $250 or $200. And now, in some cases, you're not paying $1 to train at our facility.
Right.
Or you're being charged $50 because you've moved along enough, but you're not far enough along to where you shouldn't be paying to train because you're not an expert. So when guys are not paying a gym fee, I look at it as the offset of, hey, instead of a small school show when we have 50 people, like if you think I was going to pay you $50, you're nuts. And secondly, I wouldn't have, go look at the card. Go look at how many guys are on the card. It's pretty simple to do an 8-match card with one tag team match and one multi-man. And you got about 20 guys on a show. Yeah. When Joe runs a show, there's 30 guys on it. So there's a good chance that Brett the Thread and Nick Xander and Chase Bell and Adriel and Laz and Suavecitos and Sky High, even though they're the 4th, 5th, 6th tag team, because we do have Death Proof Wrestling and we had the Unguided Wrestling and Kenny and Shogun were the champs and the R&B were there. How many tag team matches do you think I could possibly have? So, right. Hey, let's do a pre-show match, a 6-man tag, so the Suavecitos can get another match instead of being off the card. It gives them the experience. The more matches, the more experience. Hopefully, the quicker they can get better and better and better and better.
Right.
But if my choice is I have to add a 10th match to give you experience, and then you're going to squat that, you should be paid to be on a show because that guy there throws you the money. Well, guess what? I don't need to put you on the show. I'm now doing you a favor to put you on the show. I'm not doing it because it's like, oh, yeah, I don't have to pay these guys. I'll get them on the show. Well, go look at the guys that are on the show. So even at the last Future Shock, we had Chris Bay and Ice Williams and Jay Vidal and Sharp and guys who've been around forever. So it isn't like I'm just using 20 young kids who, hey, we can make money off of.
Right.
You know, we're trying to do the best shows we can and also incorporate the young guys to give them an opportunity to have a match. But right. They look at it as, oh, well, you know, the place over there that runs a show every month or two, they pay me. Okay, well, go work over there every month or two and worry about no experience, especially when the pandemic's going on. Instead, you have a good chance of getting on 2 to 3 shows a month where you can't get on 2 or 3 other shows in a month, especially last year, anywhere else.
Right.
Because just like we weren't really bringing in the guys that we use now. We weren't bringing in Toko Uso and Eli Everfly and Gatson. We brought in the mainstays who were Hammerstone and Graves, who have been with us forever. And because of their association with Class, you know,
right,
where, you know, those guys helped train, that was about it. Everybody else was all the younger local guys who were getting the opportunity to work people. You know, Creature Feature, they got to work guys like Death Proof, and Sky I got to work the R&B when, you know, people were like, oh, these guys are good, and they shit the bed because they weren't ready yet. And what did they do? They got better and better and better. And when you wrestle better and better and better people, you either sink or swim. Yeah. And you're not going to get that opportunity wrestling once every 2 months. So, you know,
yeah.
That couldn't even tell you what the subject was that you brought up where I got to, but hey, that's me.
No, it's an interesting look because one of the things that I've noticed and some of the guys I've talked to are, you know, in agreement, and that is those guys that you just mentioned, teams like Sky High, Suavecitos, you know, you know, they get better, and you see the difference between if they do, let's say, an outside show, you see the difference between what I compare professional theater to community theater. And so if you put someone who really has the knowledge, has the ability, has the preparation, you give them the opportunity, they'll always look more polished than the person they're going in with, if that, that training and whatever the circumstances of that person wasn't that good. It's very obvious that the people who've trained at FSW are automatically going in there with more of a pedigree, and are getting more experience. So it's a very interesting thing where, as long as they're continuing to grow, it is the difference between just being a wrestler and calling yourself then a professional wrestler, because these guys like Adriel and like Laz, they really are coming along and learning how to be professionals. And whether it be, in ring, they already have talent, but learning how to tell the stories, or out the ring, hitting the gym and making themselves look. Adriel's made one hell of a jump in his, physique. The guy is starting to become a mature man as compared to the kid who trained. And it's phenomenal to watch the growth, um, and all because they've had the opportunities that you've given them. I know back at UPW, it was always something when guys like Triple H and the Hardy Boys and Steve Regal or William Regal, they would come in and they would work matches with guys like Samoa Joe, the guys who were, right on that cusp of getting to that developmental deal. And it was so invaluable that they got these experiences. Do you feel that when these opportunities meet, the younger students, that if they are taking it by the horns and really accelerating, that at some point they're going to leave you in what would be a tough spot for you, and that is that now you have the Suavecitos and Creature Feature and Sky High. Now they're all on the R&B level and the Death Proof level. Are you looking forward to having that real, kind of almost difficulty of deciding where things will go? Because all the teams now are really, the differential is what stories can we put them in, that they're all, polished, really good wrestlers. Is that ultimately what the goal is to get these guys to the point where not only they give you the dilemma of how to book, so many good talents, but also are now at the point where if they wrestled in Florida or New York or, Texas, that it's reflective of the company, that they come in, they do exactly what they need to do, and then they start getting noticed, around the country, because not only have people seen their stuff, but other promoters and bookers know that if they bring these guys in, they're getting something of value that will help their company ultimately as well.
Well, there's two different subjects I'll get to. Number one, things work out for themselves somehow, some way. Whether it is Parada needed time off, Damian Drake got injured, that eliminated two tag teams for a while. Jay Vitale got bounced into the singles division and prospered immensely. Vandegrift is the same thing. Match of the weekend. There was no denying their skill set, but because of such a loaded no limits division, we broke off a bunch of them into the tag team division.
Right.
The tag team division wasn't stellar. As good as our tag team division was in, say, 2017-18, when people, all of a sudden, we lost all our teams to China and we created stuff. And now all of a sudden we brought Tito and Che back. We had the 1%, but who realized the 1% was, Royce ended up signing with NWA. And then it kind of opened things up again. And then we did an anniversary show where we had a reunion with the Following, and Bryce Harrison didn't make it. And we saw the chemistry continue between Cody and Jake and move them into the tag team division to now where they're sitting atop it. So I really don't have concerns because Adriel against Eli Everfly proved that he can work singles, and I'm pretty sure Laz will be fine doing singles if they had to. It's what's needed. There may be a shift that, hey, we need 3 or 4 guys in the No Limits division. Where are we going to pull them from? Oh, yeah, the tag division, because Damian Drake comes back in 4 months, 6 months. Who's to say Matt Vandergriff or Jay Vidal's not the No Limits champion at that point? Who's to say, the Unguided are kind of still together, but maybe they're not focused on tag stuff? We don't know. You know what I mean? There's so many options that are available. It was kind of like after the pandemic, my goal was to really restack the heavyweight division because, you got Hammerstone, you got Graves, you got Shogun, you got Hero. So the 4 main heavyweights are all baby faces. Okay.
Right.
Well, Hammerstone and Graves weren't baby faces. They became baby faces because we shut down. We reopened. People like them. It's been 9 years of seeing these guys. So when Hammerstone cuts a promo and says, hey, it's great to be back, despite everything, I'm glad to perform here. The crowd always wanted to like him. They used to love him. And now we put him in a situation to succeed as a baby face. And, he's a great promo either way.
Right.
Graves was never the talker. Graves was just that guy who went out that people respected because of his brute strength and his really sarcastic humor, So now it's like, okay, well, now we got a guy like Class. Now we got a guy like Tito. And now we kind of, whether they're a tag or singles, you got Toa and Juicy,
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden there's legitimate threats to Hammerstone. And we haven't seen Shogun since the Kenny King incident. So, where his mindset is, hey, that's still up in the air, And then Cepha ended up working a lot more than we expected over the last few months. And Chris Bay's worked a lot more than is expected over the last few months. And what am I going to do? Nah, we're okay, Chris. I got to get the Suavecitos on the show. We're going to pass on you today. You know what I mean? So that's not going to happen, And there's pecking orders. And it's like, well, this guy, yeah, you're right. When a guy who does things for us for years, he is going to get more than a guy who's been doing stuff for us for 6 months.
Right.
Or a guy who hasn't been doing shit for us, just wrestling for years. We got hit up by Daivari. We're pretty close in that situation. And it was like they're looking for people for SummerSlam. And he went out of his way to say, hey, I need some people. Who do you think? We need some girls. What do you think? So I ran him down a list. He really likes Hero Lou, so that he was automatically on the list. But this was more for extra work and not really for the tryout stuff.
Sure.
And who am I going to give him? I am going to recommend the guys that are always around and they're always helping, that will appreciate that opportunity. So, and Daivari gave me the info, hey, contact this guy and let him know that, Sean said to hit you up about the extra work, because Sean worked with them at the FSW school, blah, 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 and hopefully these guys will hear back and they'll get an opportunity to see what it's like to be around 65,000 people. When AEW was here, we had 15 guys as extras.
Yeah.
who all got paid, pretty well. A couple $100 just to be. They paid them to like watch a national pay-per-view, and they got to be a part of it. And whether it was being the early Chris Jerichos or being part of the Dark Order, they got to see what it's like to do a live major event in front of 15,000 people at the MGM.
Yeah.
Now, you could motherfuck me all you want, and you could say Joe this and Joe that, but I know what I've done for people, and if some people are ungrateful, which I always feel some are, it is what it is. I do the best that I can. I don't know anybody anything, but I go out of my way, and I always help. And that's why sometimes I say, man, if I just book guys from out of state, because they seem to be extremely grateful and thankful that they get an opportunity to be on a show, while not that they're bad people, but a lot of the locals and the younger guys, it's just second nature to them. They just think, hey, I'm part of FSW. It's like, hey, bro, that doesn't mean shit. If I'm not giving you that opportunity, then I'm not giving you the opportunity, And it's like, I go out of my way to do that. And it seems like in some cases, they expect it to be that way.
Sure.
We had an incident at the anniversary show. And of course, it was the Suavecitos. And of course, it wasn't Ricky or Quest, it was Danny, and he chose to include somebody as part of an entrance. And I'm sitting there like, what the fuck is going on? And after the match, I had to sit right in the gorilla spot waiting for them to come out. And it's like, so which one of you motherfuckers thought it was a good idea for somebody who trained with us for a month and hasn't been seen in 3 to have a spot on the fucking biggest show we've done in a year and a half? Like, do you remember Suavecitos when you had to fucking earn your spot and you always wanted to get on a show and I didn't think you were ready, and how great you felt when you got to be on there? Who the fuck was that person when we have 2 or 3 other girls that didn't get to be on any part of the show who have paid dues and trained consistently over the past year?
Yeah.
And you can blame Danny for doing it, but Ricky should have been like, bro, you better talk to fucking Joe. So they're to blame, because I always like blaming Danny more because it usually is, but they're both at guilt, even though one was more than the other,
Right.
And was it malicious? No, it was, he thought it would be, hey, this would be a good idea. Well, guess what? It was a shitty idea. And number 2, you don't fucking do that idea without running it through me.
Yeah.
And it's just beating that mindset in for them to understand it.
Yeah, because one of the things I know very well as someone who's produced stuff, the last thing you want is the inmates trying to run the asylum. And
they all think they know everything.
Exactly. And a lot of times what performers don't understand is that you as a performer, of course, you have your goals, what you're trying to achieve. But when you are working, especially when you're working for a company you're training with, it's called training for a reason. You're getting seasoned, you're getting trained. You're not in the position to now start making calls on your own. And, I don't know how many times, it took me to learn as a young guy that improvisation is something that you have to really, be careful of what you're doing in terms of just adding things so that the producer or promoter of the product, if they're not aware, it can kill your career easily. As we wrap up here, let me ask you, this coming Saturday, the show's at 7 p.m. It's available on the FSW network. What are you looking forward to on that show And is there any things that we should be as fans looking at to see where maybe some future things are pointing when we watch the show?
Yeah, there's always reasons to, try to foreshadow. I always try to sprinkle some things in, no matter how minor they are, that when you look back at the big picture after the fact, you say, oh man, yeah, I saw what happened when he did that at that show. Because, initially it tries to be extremely subtle. And, I'll be honest with you, a lot of the matches on this show is, kind of hitting the reset button,
Sure.
After kind of everything that was there, and then who's going to be here compared to there, it's like, class has the cash in the case. And I think we have to really move forward toward, getting to where he is going to do something.
Right.
He's sprinkled a little here with Remy and stuff, but I think the time is right now. Being as much of a heel that he is, he's gonna harp at any opportunity he can. Because of the ending of Hammerstone, EC3, and Juicy, it didn't really leave him an opportunity to kind of cash in at that point. So,
Right.
I think that's going to happen. Then I think, contenders for Ice Williams, Chris Bay and him obviously have some unfinished business. But now a guy like Jay Vidal and Matt Vandergriff, they're going to be, they're nipping at the toes right now.
Yeah.
Matt Vandergriff has been hugely successful. Eli Everfly's been successful. Jay Vidal's been successful. How many guys are in line, to get an opportunity? And we also got to build, Death Proof just defeated RMB. So we need to find a top contender for the tag titles, because the Unguided are out.
Yeah.
Bitches are out. So
Yep.
now it's that same tier that has to step up, whether it's Creature Feature and Lights Camera Faction. They got the opportunity. Does that mean it's done? No. Does it mean that I'm not going to look at a Toko Uso? Am I going to look at, some top tier tag teams from the West Coast? We run a good amount of shows. It's a lot easier when we're running a big show every 6 to 8 weeks to set up a major, tag feud. But
Right.
trying to get all these guys work, it's like, even on this week's show, we don't have the Suavecitos and we don't have Sky High. It was like, sure, I guess I got to put them against each other again, but that would be 50 times,
Yeah.
They worked singles. They did a couple of 3-way matches. They did some 3-way tags. They did a gauntlet match. It's like, now it's time to, always try to freshen things up. And that's also part of the reason for joint shows and working with other companies. It's fresh blood,
Yeah.
Let's see what Sky High's learned in FSW when they have to take on somebody, from West, WAC or Defy or whatever it is. Or, let's see how Cody handles himself against Nick Gage or Chris Dickinson or guys that have, they were the same. They're the same as our guys were a couple years ago, a guy like Dickinson, but then he got out to the West Coast. He got on the Bloodsport. He got on GCW. And, he's the same guy he was 7 years ago when he was a great, solid wrestler working on the East Coast. It's just now more people know who the hell the Dirty Daddy is. And because he's put in the time, he's put in the effort, and it's the longevity, a guy like Cody has been doing similar things on the West Coast for maybe even longer than Dickinson.
Yeah.
But because initially, as small as we were just a local Vegas company, we've been the local Vegas company for more years than we've been a company that's breaking out throughout the country. You know, we probably got a couple of good years doing that, and almost one of them was stymied because of the pandemic. So, 2019, we really turned the corner of what we were doing. And then, halfway through the next year or a third of the way through, things got closed up. So now it's like trying to get back out there. GCW is doing us more of a favor than we're doing for them.
Right.
They understand that we have the talent base, the fan base in Vegas, and they're in here, but they can do well without us. They can definitely do a little better with us, but they're helping us in a broader sense.
Right.
FW versus GCW is not helping us in Vegas per se, because most of our fans were coming to our show regardless who it was. It isn't like we haven't booked Nick Gage before or Chris Dickinson. Now, company versus company, which now on pay-per-view, there's GCW fans who may have kind of heard of us, but never saw a Funny Bone and never saw a Remy or a Hammerstone or a Chris. Well, yeah, they probably saw Chris Bay, but even if they weren't, because Chris Bay worked for GCW. But the thing is, a lot of those guys, have now worked for them that worked for us. And now by doing a joint show and pitting them toe to toe, in which should be some fucking bang up matches, because now, not that anybody doesn't give 100%, but I'm pretty sure everyone is going to be on their A game, because there's a much wider audience out there to impress.
Yeah.
And I don't care what anybody says. When you're wrestling in front of 40 people, I'm pretty sure it was a lot different than when you wrestled in front of 340 people at the anniversary show.
Yeah. Yeah.
What a crowd that was excited to be there. And it was the first opportunity to go out there. It's amazing how a guy like TJ Perkins can go out there, and what to him, here's a guy who wrestled in the fucking Tokyo Dome. You know what I mean? But he wrestles in an FSW show, and you don't see any lack of effort. Like, yeah, well, maybe we should do 10 minutes and, let's do a lot of mat wrestling. Like, he does his match regardless of where it is. And that's how the majority of guys are. And hopefully the younger guys see that, and it wears on them when they're watching, and hopefully watching and paying attention to when we do bring in guys. Like, we had an EC3 seminar that everybody who was there, was like, oh, wow, this was far better expected, because EC3, he's relatively young. His WWE run was fucking horrible. Impact was great, but, he kind of died off for a couple of years, and he's kind of reinvented himself and looks like $100 million. Looks so much different than when he was out here with us in like 2015. But I'll tell you what, man, here's a cat who really enjoys teaching, was really surprising. Like, I remember when I talked a few months back when I saw him, and he was like, he was basically talking about, because I always put over the Steve Carino seminar. And Steve Carino to me was like, I tell people, if there was a wrestling not even a psychology, if there was a wrestling class being taught at a university, Professor Steve Carino would be the guy to run it. Because I remember and EC3 did the same thing, except Steve Carino was much smarter. He had me do it on white paper, while EC3 had me do it on black paper. And I basically had to spend $56 in ink, because making copies of his 9 fucking page seminar booklet, it's like, dude, you need to do white paper. It is white paper, not with the black background. It needs some ink. But the seminar was extremely impressive. Like, we did one a few weeks back with Gangrel, and everybody's like, oh yeah, well, Gangrel's been doing it for 25 years. So people in their mind Gangrel runs a school. He worked at Rikishi's, helped run Rikishi's school, was in the Fed forever. You know, it's Gangrel. A lot of times the younger wrestlers or the guys still in it, the fans aren't as ecstatic about it. Like when we did a seminar with like Lance Hoyt or TJ Perkins or PJ Black, you know, the turnout was nowhere near what I would have thought. Simon Gotch, you know, because he didn't do much on the main roster. Simon Gotch became really more he had more notoriety working the Indies and NXT before the WWE run. But he's an awesome dude, and he is so knowledgeable. It's insane. And some of these younger kids, you know, it's what they grew up with. So, you know, it's amazing how they don't take advantage of these seminars that are $25-$30. I've seen guys who barely made it who are charging $75 and $100 to do stuff because everybody's getting their piece. I'm using our students. So having our students do it. So we're getting money from them. I don't need to gouge them. Like, sure, Jushin Liger, we did, it was $75, but that's a once in a lifetime thing. You know, we'll have a seminar with Gangrel for $30, and then you'll see it a month later on Facebook, someplace in the middle of nowhere will charge $75.
Yep.
You know, Bubba Dudley, he did one in New Mexico, and it was like $75 or $100. We did it in Vegas. I think it was $40.
Yeah.
Ring of Honor, you know. So we try to give people as much opportunity to learn as possible.
Yeah, and
and that's worth the value.
Absolutely. And the EC3 seminar, you know, having watched a portion of it, it was really informative, but it was really hands-on, and the guys got a chance to, you know, really not only show in the ring stuff and get some critiques, but also the promo stuff. And that was, you know, it was incredible to watch that.
I thought, because he told me to print up the booklet, I didn't think there was going to be any in-ring stuff at all, which is fine because Raven did one that way and people were bitching about Raven. Oh, didn't do anything in the ring. And it's like, okay, well, sorry, Raven didn't have you do 100 squats. Instead, he was telling you about the psychology of the fucking business, you idiots. And it's the same thing with EC3. After the fact, he came up to me. He's like, bro, man, your students listen. They're willing to learn. And I've never seen a group of that many kids get it and know what they're doing. You know, I wish they would act that way during regular classes. But hey, you got to start somewhere.
Well, on that note, everyone, we're going to wrap up here. Just remember, Saturday, bell time 7 p.m. Is that correct?
Bell time is 7 p.m. Spider is taking over in production right now, and he's really trying to get things moving and shaking. I know we're going to have, I'm pretty certain, unless things have changed, but the Vegas Bad Boys pregame show.
As far as we know, it's still on. So you can catch the pregame, you know, learn a little bit about what's going on that night on the show, and go right into it on the FSW network. And again, please subscribe to the network. You get shows like this for, what is it, $6.99 a month?
I think it was $6.49 when I was looking. I was like, that's weird. Can't you just make it you know, why not just make it $7? But whatever.
So please subscribe and check it out, and you can also see the back catalog of you know, almost everything that FSW has done, which is phenomenal. And please keep listening to the Vegas Bad Boys. We appreciate everyone's support. And until next time, everyone, we'll see you then.